Center, June 11, 2018. Welcome, everybody. Agenda amendments. Council.
I need to add Pride. Krista Biggs is here.
Let's add it after 7:45. Pride. Any other agenda amendments, Council? Minutes, May 14, 2018, regular meeting.
I move we approve.
I second it.
Any further discussion, Council, on the minutes for May 14th? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Payroll vouchers, number 18-05, May wages and salaries.
I move we approve the payroll voucher. Second.
Any further discussion, Council, on the payroll vouchers? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Accounts payable, May checks pre-written, May accounts payable.
Move that we approve May checks pre-written and May accounts payable. Second.
Any further discussion, Council? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Moving on, delinquent accounts.
Did the first one own a house? Did he just rent?
About normally where we're at this time of Anything else on the delinquent accounts? Moving on, Lincoln Park Manor, street temporary closure for June 29th. Greg Babcock is here. Sorry. Forgive me. I'm thankful.
Yes, I'm just here to, request permission to close, street, like I said, June 29th, 5th Street between Center and Park for our annual fireworks extravaganza.
I only got one thing to say because I got chewed. You probably already heard about it. Walt Conley's alley. Was it blocked last time?
Donley's?
Next to Freezing's. Gene Friesen. Just
Supposedly he
That
could.
wasn't 4th of July, that might have
I know it wasn't
Yeah.
4th of July, but last time you guys blocked, he couldn't get in his alley, and I guess he parks in the alley or
okay.
something
Yeah, I think
about
that
a
was
ramp
their
to get in
Easter
his
egg
house.
hunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they've taken
I just
over.
want to make sure that don't happen because
No,
I
not
got it.
mine, mine's just in between that that spot.
Okay. I just wanna make sure I don't get an earful on Sunday morning.
Are you
I
requesting
won't do
barricades?
that to you.
Yeah,
Are
you
you
need-
requesting barricades?
Yes, I am, while I'm here, I will
How
need
many?
barricades, the normal, we think we usually get, about 8 of them, 4 on, Park and 4 or 5 or so on the south end.
Can we drop them off on the corner?
Yeah.
I move we approve the request for temporary closure. Second.
Any further discussion, council, on the request? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
I forgot to add on the agenda amendments that, the 740 count canceled, so is not gonna need closure. Economic Development, interns, Kelly Larson, Bethany Pingel, right, is that right?
Yeah, that was good.
Micah Blair, right?
Miki.
Mickey Blair. I met him the other day, I apologize, Mickey Blair, okay.
Well, why don't we go stand over there? We're given the full experience of how roomy the council room is here. I know a few of you have already met them or not, but I wanted to introduce the summer interns that are working for me this summer. Bethany Pingel is an interior design student at K-State, and she's from Beloit. And then Miki Blair is an architecture student at KU from Denver. And they've been on the job here just about 2 weeks, I think. And they've been going gangbusters in terms of getting themselves familiar with the projects, but then also I've been really impressed with them just kind of getting out into the community and meeting a lot of people, and they've already been volunteering for things, so I don't think people are gonna let them leave because it's been great so far. But just as a little bit of refresher from, I think it was last month, Economic Development put together a downtown design assistance program. And that's what they're working on this year, where we have put it out, applications to the different property owners in all the communities. And we had 17 applications come in. So I wasn't really sure what to expect because this is a new thing, but I'm not sure I expected 17. So I was really happy with that. I think it shows me that there's a real need for assistance from property owners. So with that, we've kind of whittled it down to 8 projects that they're getting started on. 5 of which we've got grant funding to assist with 5 projects for $5,000. So not all of them are going to be getting the grant funding, and City Hall is one of them. We've picked you to help, but in terms of the grant funding, my philosophy on that is, as a local government, you've got opportunities for grant funding that other business owners don't necessarily have. So I'm going to be more than happy to help find any of that for you, but for this project anyway, there's 5 other projects that will get the grant funding. So the other day, I guess to jump in this, the City Hall project that was applied for is to help with this. I think we've kind of talked about it off and on for a time that this room is pretty crowded, and it doesn't necessarily work the best or the most comfortable for council meetings, especially if you've got a couple agenda items where there are people who are coming to speak before you. And so with that, I guess I'm gonna hand it over to these guys. They talked to Travis and Heather the other day, but I'm gonna kind of let them talk about that. But I'll throw you on there, just throw it at you.
I wish I had my notes of what we kind of talked about a little more, but I think I can remember most of it. So we kind of walked around and talked about how the community comes here a lot for these meetings, whether it's every time you guys have a meeting or if it's yearly or something, but there's quite a few people that come in here in and out too. So when everybody comes in and out, you know, and it's could be a disruption, and so there's just a lot of functional things with the space that I think you guys have grown as a population, and I think you've outgrown this room, and so we explored the idea of moving it upstairs, but fundamentally speaking, if you had a budget set in place, your budget would really realistically go into an elevator, so it can be accessible for all the community members. So that's always an idea, but it might be like phase 2 or phase 3, and I think that phase 1, what we concluded is that you have this space in the garage area that's just being used as storage that the city could use in other spots, so they could store things other places, and maybe we branch out in there and explore the option of maybe making some ADA accessible bathrooms on this floor, along with making that maybe this space. And so it could have a projection screen that can go up and down, and it could have all of this in place, and it can be multifunctional, and a door can be not in clear sight, so when somebody comes in there, it's just a huge disruption and everything. I'm not saying you were, but.
I have any ideas you guys have,
Yeah.
or needs that you guys maybe want that we haven't thought of yet?
Would you have any suggestions for what this room could be turned into if we move out of here?
Mayor's office.
Yeah, we did talk about that, and we have some storage in the garage right now, kind of these huge, big storage things that need to stay at City Hall that could move in here as well.
Our map cabinets are out in the garage.
Yeah.
Because we have nowhere to put them. So the guys have to go out there and get them and then come back here when they need to look at a map.
And I mean, it seems like in there, I'm gonna guess, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a little crowded in there with
Yes.
3 people. And so being able to kind of expand into here, bring some stuff into the building that should be in the building, so everybody's just got more breathing room, basically.
I think they had a lot of great ideas, and I think you'll come up with a good idea. A costly idea.
Yeah.
How's
Yeah.
that?
As much as we want to put an elevator in and kind of use that space upstairs, I don't think that's the wisest thing to do, cost-wise.
I have suggested that maybe if they can make a recommendation for where it should go at some point in the future, maybe we kind of say this is where a future elevator would go, so that if we ever, if there was ever need up there, it's planned for, I guess you could say, and it's in everybody's mind, well, that's where it needs to go. If you have any ideas that come to mind of what you'd like to see, or things in the council room that you want, don't want, whatever, please feel free to give them a call. They're at the Economic Development Office, so you can call there, or just shoot me an email, I can send them your way, or whatever. So I'm looking forward to the summer. It's going to be a very good summer, I think.
Well, welcome to Lincoln. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, we're excited.
Thank you. Moving on, Pride. Mrs. Biggs.
Okay, how are you guys? I just wanted to check in. We had our first Friday 2 weeks ago, and I feel like we had a really good turnout for it, and we had a successful evening. A couple of things that we did want to ask for future ones was, I was hoping to ask Jess about locations, possible locations for the taco stands. Is there any other possible locations than at the volleyball courts or the bandstand, or is that it?
There's no other electrical.
No other electrical options. Okay, so some of our food vendors had mentioned that being at the tennis courts, not the volleyball courts, but at the tennis courts, they felt like they were kind of away from everything at the bandstand. So we were kind of discussing it amongst our group about ways that we could possibly get them closer, but being right by the bandstand, we didn't know if that would be feasible either. So we're kind of playing around with that, but we want to be able to put in one taco stand at least at the first Friday for next time. We're having another meeting later in the month. Is there any way we could touch base with Jess and tell him whether we want it at the bandstand or at the tennis courts? Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be our first thing. And then we also would like the trash cans and the barricades for next time as well. That worked out perfectly. And then we also wrote for a grant for more benches on Main Street and for more flower pots. And we would like to get the city's permission and volunteer to install them because we would like them placed. We're putting a bench in front of the senior center. And they installed our other benches. So I don't know if that would be a problem. And then we are getting 4 flower pots for Main Street Square. So at Bank of Tusket and Harlow's Studio and Citizens, right, all 4 corners there. And we've gotten permission from the business owners on each corner. So we would just like permission to install or have you guys install them.
We can do the flower pots, we just need the city to install the bench.
Yes.
We can assemble it again if he will just attach it to the sidewalk.
Yes. So, those were requests.
Have you got somebody lined up to take care of the flower pots, the plants you're gonna put in them?
Yes. We have talked to the business owners and we'll plant them and then they will take care of
Okay.
watering them. So,
Sounds good.
hopefully, a little beautification. So.
Nice.
How many people do you think you had Friday, Krista?
Oh, I don't know. It was hard to tell because, like, it didn't look like a lot right at the bandstand, and I would like to see a way of bringing people closer to the bandstand so everybody was closer. But throughout the park, I would say we had, I don't know.
Well, you had families with the little kids come for the children's program, and then they left, and then you had
Yeah, it
The
was kind of
older
a
crowd come
cycle
for the band.
throughout, but I would say we had 100,
I was gonna say 75 to 100, somewhere
Yeah.
in there.
I would say somewhere. Because, like, I really was bummed when I was first at the concert, but then when I started, like, walking back through the park, there was, like, little groups of people here, like 5 or 10 people here and there, so I was like, oh, well, there's a lot more people than I originally had thought when I was just at the bandstand, so I felt like that was a pretty good start, and it was, I don't know if anybody was out that Friday, but it was insanely hot and humid, so for that kind of weather, for that good of a turnout, I was pleased. So,
And the first one.
yes, and the first one. And there was a lot of activities that night with just alumni weekend and everything else. So, I felt like it was good.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the only way you'll get people over the bandstand is if you have shade.
Yes. Yeah. I think
It was the one sunny spot in the whole park.
I know. It got better, like, if you could just be in the grassy spot over there, but yeah. Yes, that was once it got darker, I tried to get people to move out there, but then also some people were dancing out there too, so it worked out pretty well, so.
Well, I don't wanna speak for Jess, but I don't think it'll be a problem for us to set the benches. It wasn't that big a deal last time.
And it's only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
do I entertain a motion then, I guess, to approve the setting of the bench and the flower pots?
I so move.
Second.
Any more discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Kristen.
Thank
I
you,
abstain.
guys.
Noted.
I didn't realize you were, Krista, I didn't realize you were gonna give dancing lessons while you were at
Yes, yeah, the kiddos, yes, it's fun.
Approval of law enforcement contract agreement.
we approve the law enforcement agreement.
Second.
Any more discussion, council, on the law enforcement agreement? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Moving on, pool updates.
The pool is open. It's been fairly busy so far. The new slides are a hit. Kids really like them. But I do have a request. I know I'm the chair of the pool committee, but I have put a lot of hours into the pool, getting it ready. I made the first 2 weeks of the schedule. I worked one weekend because we were short on people, so I manned the cage. I would like compensated for my time. I brought the schedule if anybody would like to see. My name is on there. I'm just not going down there and hanging out. I've kept track of my time and I've wrote it down. So Heather has a record of when I'm down there actually helping. So that's my only request.
Now, are you gonna have to continue to be down there?
I hope not. We have, one guard at camp, one guard at something else, and then we're like 3 guards short the first few weeks. I think once we get through like June and we get the camps over and the guards back, I think we'll be fine. It's just they have busy schedules.
So we have a pool manager and we have an assistant manager.
And how is that working out?
Good.
And one of them's on duty at all times.
Yes. Well, if the manager or assistant manager is not there, then the manager appoints someone to act as the manager for that day. But I think that's only happened twice. So it's not gonna be a big issue.
So when you are down there, what tasks, what function are you?
I sell concessions, I take admissions, sell season passes. I just kinda walk around, do the job that the pool employees would do, take out the trash, make sure everything's kinda neat and picked up, skim if it needs skimmed, answer any questions, just kinda do some PR with the patrons.
But you foresee this just going through probably the end of June at the max?
Probably. I mean, unless there's something comes up and, I mean, I'm not a certified guard, but I am certified in CPR and first aid. So if something did happen, I would still have the training to help.
So what's the schedule look like for, I mean, even later in the summer? I mean, are we gonna?
They've just done through the month of June.
So you don't know what's later on down there?
I don't have, there's not near as many days requested off for July as what there was in June.
Is your manager doing the duties they're supposed to, doing the scheduling and all this kind of stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
I did the first 2 weeks simply because she was a college graduate and I did it so everybody could get their schedule ahead of time so they knew what they would be working, and I did the first 2 weeks and she did the rest of June.
Okay.
I did talk to Jess today and he said, I have not heard anything about the pool or from the pool, so apparently it's going good. So.
Well, I just thought if we have a new manager, give her opportunity to actually manage and
I agree.
maybe it can be a good experience for her, and if she's in charge and everything, so.
And
I
they're, you know, with the other guards, they're pushing their 38 hours a week. And I was like, just don't get any overtime. But by the time they broom and they vacuum and they work their shifts, there's several of them that are,
Pushing the 40.
yeah.
Well, then that'll take some of the pressure off you then when all the guards are there, then you don't have to deal with it so that she can take
Right.
it on like she's supposed to, so.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, when you got like all these kids that need off.
Oh, yeah, I know there was a couple of them that had camps, especially through the middle of June.
Yeah.
And so that was gonna be a tough time.
Yeah.
But
And I think once we get through that, I think we'll be fine. Cause I really don't wanna,
Cause I think you have people, we have ample people hired, don't we?
yes.
Okay.
It's just getting them,
Summers are different. You know, kids got so much stuff. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was okay, you go to work until when school starts again. Now there's camps and
Yeah, kids weren't as active
yeah.
in the summer times.
Rubber tires.
Yeah.
Do you, let me just say what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we probably don't want to make you a pool employee, just open-ended for the summer. But I think if we can do something to compensate you for the time you've spent and the time that you're needing to spend through the end of June, I think that would be a fair thing to do. But I guess I don't want to hire another pool employee,
Well, we don't need,
you know.
we don't need 10 manager, or, you know what I
Right.
mean?
And it would be, you know, yeah, we need to still be sure we adhere to the chain of command and that the manager's the manager and the assistant's the assistant, and we go through all that. So I guess the other thing I'm getting at here, Lisa, with you, with all the involvement that you've had, I don't want you to get stuck being roped into more than you're wanting to be roped into, because I know you got a lot of other irons in the fire, and you know, so I want to make sure we don't just put you in an open-ended thing where you're a de facto
Tied to it.
extra employee at the pool.
Yeah.
Well, and if this gal has a business, isn't it business management degree? Give her reins, let her use her education to manage.
I
and
agree.
she's doing good. It's just getting and like there's, you know, there's baseball games and, you know, so I think once we get through June.
Then the summer will be over.
No, we have July and August yet. But yeah.
What, and I'm not even sure who I'm asking here, maybe either Dan or Heather, what would be a proper way to handle this in terms of a temporary employment agreement? Just,
You have the authority to do that if you choose to.
like any temporary employee, we would,
I think you'd have to treat it the same way.
okay.
If you find that it's needed, and if you find that whatever the billing has been earned, then I think that's something you have discretion to use, to do.
I guess that's my other concern with it, is we need to make sure that we've got something that backs up the time that has been invested thus far, since there was no employment agreement prior to whenever we would execute one. We don't want to, you know, we don't want to be in a situation where we grant wages for work that wasn't asked to be performed as an employee, I guess is what I'm getting at, because so if, I feel like if you've got a schedule that shows that you were on it and all those kind of things, I don't have a problem with with paying for that, because that's a, you know, I feel like that's a very above board thing that you've, you know, been there and put in the time.
Yes.
And I know you've put in a lot of time with other things as well, and I guess my biggest concern here is we need to figure out how we draw the line between volunteer, you know, chair of the Pool and Parks Committee as a council member, and where the, you know, employment duties, where did that line happen, and how do we equitably determine that without, you know.
I think anytime she's down there fulfilling the duties of an employee, then that's outside of her position as chairman of the Pool and Parks.
I'm just more concerned about the things that have happened previous to today.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
Dan, would it be better to handle this as like contract labor instead of making an employer?
Well, I think either way you could do it. I think you need to scrutinize whatever Lisa has that she presented in order to make that distinction that Councilman Elijah was talking about. It's contracting after the fact. That's the thing that bothers me about that. But if there's such a thing as having been earned separate from what the council member duties are and the specific duties, then I think that should be analyzed by the council or a committee within the council and just treat it that way, especially if it's not going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah. So if Lisa would just submit to us a billing for the number of hours and the duties performed, then we can.
And yes, that's.
I filled out a time card just like the pool employees have, so
Okay.
it's
Well, that gives us
documented.
hours. I really think it needs to be a separate document other than just a time card. Just, you know, like an invoice. This is how many hours, these are the things I was doing. And that way it give us a chance to determine how we wanna handle it. But I think you need to be compensated for it too.
Okay.
And I think it ought to go maybe through, like we said, the end of June.
End of June,
Yeah, but after that,
yeah.
let the kids, they need to fulfill the duties.
If it looks like that's gonna recur, then I think you need to come back to us and we'll have to look at maybe making you a temporary employee.
I just wanna see the manager fulfill her
Yes.
job as manager and give her the opportunity to grow from this
And I'm
experience.
sure she wants to do that too.
Yeah, and be in charge, so.
So I guess to clearly define what we're asking for here, are we basically saying we agree in principle that she should be paid for what she's done, and we just need to make sure that there's a clear documentation as to when and where and what, and then we can, you know, get you paid, and instead of putting you on a payroll regular thing, we'll evaluate it at the next meeting and determine what we need to do, because by next meeting, June will be over, and you shouldn't be needed down there anymore, and we can settle up.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good to me.
Do I need a motion for any of that?
I think you should have a motion to address it that way.
do you want me to restate all that? I would move that we request Lisa Feldkamp to present documentation of hours worked, when, and what duties were performed at the pool beyond her council person obligations, to be presented at the July meeting for approval.
Through the month of June.
Through the month of June only, through the end of the month of June.
Second.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I abstain.
else in the pool? That's it? Okay. Car show, September 22nd. They were not able to show, but they asked me to save the date if that was possible. That's what all they're asking for is the
For
date.
use of the park.
Use of the park for the 22nd of September.
The first, maybe?
Yeah.
So I entertain a motion for that date.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion, council, on the car show date? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Moving on, Rec Direction Committee report.
Okay. I know you guys did not get this ahead of time, so,
Do you have more copies?
there, it's, did you not get one there? I've got some more if you didn't, there should have been one at the bottom of your stack. Oh, guess I missed you. There you go. I touched on this a little bit last week, or last month. Basically, this working group was formed in April to address two main questions, one being the employment classification of the rec director position, the other one being whether or not charter ordinance needs amendments, edits, updates, to make it more in line with where the rec commission is today versus where it was when it was first established. So, that said, at our first group meeting, it became pretty evident that those two questions should be dealt with one at a time, and the most urgent of the two was the director's position, the classification of that. And so we focused on that, and our request to the council would be that we be allowed to continue working as a group to address the potential changes with Charter Ordinance 7, and with the hopes of presenting, if not one big final report in October, then maybe ongoing progress reports where we can have discussions about key sections within the charter ordinance, you know, to have a little more time to digest and work with it. But I guess in a nutshell, we've addressed the first question. The second question we basically tabled to get the first one taken care of, and then because it was evident that the second question was going to require a lot more time and research and everything. So this this report deals with the question of the rec director position with two main questions that need to be answered by an action of this council, and that would be, does the council approve the recommended employment classification that we make in this report? And the second would be to select a compensation plan if that classification is to be changed, because if we are recommending a change of classification, and if so, then we also need to set a wage, because, you know, basically, in a nutshell, we're recommending that we go from a salaried position to an hourly position. There's a lot of reasons for that. If the council's interested in hearing them, I'd be more than happy to explain, but otherwise, that is our recommendation. Section 1 of this report just shows the rec director's job description, which that is set by the rec commission board of directors as laid out in section 3 of the charter ordinance. It clearly establishes that the rec commission will determine what duties the rec director has, but the governing body will set wages. So this is more just informational than anything, because this is
You said the governing body will set the wages?
correct. That's how the charter ordinance reads. The charter ordinance, well, I'll just read section 3, so it's short, and that's where the authority to deal with this comes from. Section 3 of Charter Ordinance 7, Recreation Director. The Recreation Commission shall, at its first meeting, appoint a Recreation Director who shall serve at the pleasure of and under the direction of the Recreation Commission. The Recreation Director's salary shall be established and paid by the governing body of the City of Lincoln Center from funds provided for under Section 4 of this ordinance. So basically, the commission hires the director, determines what their job is to be, and the governing body sets the wage or salary. And this is really the key focus as to why this has been a question mark for the last however long, and that's going to be one of the key focuses of the second phase of the work that the group has to do, is determining if that's the best way to handle the position or if that should be amended. But right now, the way it stands, under the charter ordinance, the governing body sets the wage and the rec commission determines duties and the individual to be hired. So, okay, so we've got the job description there if you would like to read through that, but basically some of the key things to point out would be that there is a certain level of managerial duties within this job. I mean, it's more than just preparing baseball fields. It's more than just collecting sign-up sheets. There are other employees and things that are managed by the director. There's another part-time employee in the department currently, and there have been several over the years, as well as seasonal help with referees and things like that. So there are those management duties as well as all the scheduling, and so it's a hybrid of an office job and a hands-on job with the public and facilities. So it's pretty wide-ranging, the duties that are spelled out in here. So moving forward from that, the piece of it that the council handles, the actual employment side of things, on page 5, how things are being done now. The Recreation Director position has historically been classified as a half-time salaried FLSA exempt position. FLSA is the Fair Labor Standards Act. Half-time status gives the employee insurance and retirement benefits, but does not extend those benefits to the employee's family. Salaried FLSA exempt means that the position is compensated on a set salary without a requirement to track or record hours worked or pay overtime, and that the duties of the position pass the exemption test as spelled out in the Fair Labor Standards Act. This classification has come under scrutiny for two main reasons. Number one, salaried FLSA exempt classification is often risky to an employer, as courts tend to side with the employee should labor disputes occur. Furthermore, the current Recreation Director was originally hired at a rate lower than the minimum requirement to be classified as FLSA exempt. Her salary was below the required level for her first 16 months of employment, and this lack of compliance does not even address the duties test portion of the exemption evaluation. So basically, in English, the position did not pay enough to qualify as FLSA exempt, so we don't even pass go to get to the duties test to determine whether or not it truly is. Basically, with duties, in order to be FLSA exempt, you have to be self-managing. It's generally commissioned salespeople, professionals, what they consider to be the learned professionals, lawyers, those type of positions, or people who have a certain number of direct reports that they supervise, they hire, they fire, they schedule, they determine the duties of those people. So it really is for managers, professionals, and to some extent commissioned salespeople. So then the second question, the City of Lincoln Center Employee Wage and Fringe Benefit Report that's on public record for all city employees has the compensation for the recreation director reported both as a salary and as a wage that assumes a 20-hour work week. This has created no small amount of confusion and animosity over the years. Hours worked were not being officially reported due to the FLSA exempt classification, so the wage rate shown on the report was inaccurate and misleading to those unfamiliar with the scope of the position. Basically, on paper, it looked like the recreation director was the second or third highest paid city employee. That's what it comes down to, because of the half-time status of the position. It was just put in as a 20-hour thing, even though records were not being kept because it was deemed exempt. So how do we solve these two problems? The recommendation of the group would be to reclassify the position as a half-time hourly non-exempt position. This would benefit all parties in several ways. The City of Lincoln Center will be unquestionably in compliance with the FLSA. The director position will still enjoy individual fringe benefits as it does now, because it would still be half-time. Concerned parties will have a clear report of wage and hours worked. And the change will standardize the employment relationship amongst all of the city's non-elected, non-appointed employees. So basically, whether you're on the city crew, in the city hall, or in the recreation department, your employment status would be the same, with the only difference being whether you're full, part-time, or half-time. But beyond that, everybody would be hourly, everybody would be expected to report their hours worked and be paid accordingly. We would urge the council to act on this recommendation quickly to ensure the city is not exposed to further risk now that the aforementioned problems have come to light. And if the city would choose to act on this according to our recommendation, then we would need to go to Section 2 and review some options we put together for compensation. But if we go to that point, I don't know what the rules would be in terms of discussing that in an open session, since it is for a specific employee. But so I will pause there and ask for questions on anything I've discussed so far. Also, there are two other group members here if they have any input. That more than three. Oh, I forgot Lisa's on it. Lisa's on everything.
She's on everywhere.
So with this position being classified as half-time, is there a limit to the number of hours?
No. There is a minimum of 20 per week.
Minimum of 20.
But there is no maximum. But overtime laws do mandate that anything over 40 would be time and a half.
Okay. Is the board giving her, the rec board giving her any guidance on how many hours they expect her to work and not exceed a particular number? Or?
When they gave the last raise, we came to the conclusion based upon average hours worked that I would work 32 hours a week, with the understanding that sometimes it's a lot more and sometimes it's slightly less. It rarely ever falls much below 32.
It was pretty consistent, so we went with 32.
So they went with 32. That's what I stuck with.
That was our expectation.
Okay.
The year 4/1/17 through 3/31/18, the weekly average was just over 34 hours per week.
Okay.
So their 32-hour expectation was fairly accurate. as you can see on that chart that's on page 6, that's the actual hours worked. If you read that first paragraph there, during the working group study the matter, we found out that the recreation director has kept hour logs and that the rec commission has referenced them when setting the director's salary. So that, I guess, answers your question, that the rec commission did have an expectation as to what the hours worked would be. Those hour logs have been made available to this group and are included below. We have used those hour logs to build the 3 compensation package options. Also included below are the salary figures for the same period as the hour log. So these are the actual numbers from that time period, 4/1/17 through 3/31/18. And there's, as you can see, it has been a salary, so the numbers do not vary from month to month, with the exception of from July to August, because there was a pay raise. So you can see there were 34 hours of overtime. That's summer baseball season, but you know, still when you average those out over the course, you know, 0.65 overtime hours per week, so it's negligible in the grand scheme of things. Once you divide out all the numbers, it really doesn't have that big of an impact. But you know, and I guess you guys can speak to the scope of the program more than I can, in terms of whether or not you would anticipate any more hours due to program growth in the next 12 months, or what your thoughts are on that.
The hope is that with the part-time employee, we won't have an excessive amount of overtime, because that part-time employee will absorb some of those hours so that I don't physically have to be there.
We didn't have overtime. We had a part-time person for a while, and then we didn't, and now we do again.
Right.
And having a part-time person, especially through the summer, to help with some of the supervision for all of the summer ball activities, will cut back the extra hours that she had to work last summer. And that should alleviate that.
It shouldn't change that 34-hour mark much, but it will alleviate a lot of the overtime. Or at least I know I can look and say, okay, hey, I'm at like 43 hours and we have 3 more games left this week. I am not going to be there unless something urgent happens.
It allows you to balance and manage your time a little bit more, having somebody part-time.
So the board feels that they've got a good working relationship, that this won't be a runaway overtime hour situation?
No, we don't believe it
As you're going from, she worked as many hours as she needed to, but here's her pay, to now if she works as many hours as she wants to, she's gonna start racking up a lot more dollars.
I feel like from, the consensus seems to be that having the part-time person will keep that under control.
Okay.
And she does report her time to us every month, and we do monitor that, and we do stay on top of that.
I'm looking at this job description, and to me, it's more of a salary position than it is an hourly position. Everything that's going on with it.
Certainly is a managerial position.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, the question becomes whether the Federal Labor Standards Act
Well, and
agrees.
you said that the attorney for your
The-
insurance company, it was their
correct.
recommendation that it be,
Yes.
your insurance company's attorney recommended to Elijah that we should strongly consider it being an hourly position rather than a salary. And we kind of heeded his advice.
Basically, what he told me is get it changed as quick as you can and hope nothing comes up. That's pretty much verbatim what he told me. Because, there's, like I documented in here, the salary that was being paid didn't even meet the minimum requirement, so
At the
there's no
beginning, but now
doubt
it
that
does.
it does now.
And he's right, there are a lot of managerial functions and tasks that position does perform, but there is also a lot of hands-on tasks that they do in terms of a lot of the work that the part-time person does, that position does as well. And, she doesn't have the sole authority to hire and fire staff, she has to report to the
Correct.
board for that and whatnot, so we kind of, the group kind of agreed with your attorney's recommendation that perhaps it should be hourly.
I don't have the sole authority to spend,
No.
which is a big part of the duties test. You have to have the freedom to spend money and do with it what you please.
Now,
Which
the
clearly
part-time
I
people
don't.
that they're gonna have, are they gonna be city employees also?
They are.
They already are, yes.
Now, the flip side of this
Then
is,
why have a rec board, why not just do it ourselves?
because we don't want to have to make all those program decisions. But and you know, in phase 2 of this working group, we're gonna look at the amendments to the charter ordinance and decide, you know, where do we want the authority of the council and the authority of the rec commission to meet? Where's that line? The problem is not necessarily even that the line's in the wrong spot, it's just not where people have understood it to be.
Hypothetical question,
Mhm.
what happens if, and I'm not saying it's the current director, they get a different director, they don't like her, no, excuse me, not her, that person,
Something
I'm
changes, so
sorry.
we have a new person, absolutely, because people
Sure.
don't stay forever.
Anyway,
yes.
anyway, but that individual hasn't, how do I wanna say this?
Doesn't have the
They wanna
experience.
get rid of it, of this individual, but what that individual has been doing has, God, I lost my train of thought here, before I mentioned that.
If the new person doesn't have the same skill set,
No, it has nothing
No?
to do with the skill
Okay.
set, it has to do with,
Like if they don't perform the duties, they don't do the schedules and the work that they're supposed to do, or?
no, they're doing, that's just it. They are doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, but yet, the rec commission does not like what they're doing and wants to get rid of them. What do we do then?
that's the rec commission's prerogative. They
What's
have
gonna
the,
happen in a court of law though with that?
they, in the charter ordinance, they have the power to hire and fire for that position. They've been given the authority to fill that position and direct the position.
That was specifically intended and made clear so that wasn't something that this council had to do. It was with the people that were involved with the recreation.
That's
programs.
something that's bothering me this whole time, because
Well, I don't see that as a problem. You know, you can conjure up most anything, I guess, but
Yeah.
I think it's self-enacting as far as what would happen relative to what the rec board would decide to do, because they have the authority to do it, the way the ordinance is set up. The only thing is, this council's gonna set the pay and.
Right.
And you set the members, you know,
Yeah,
'cause
sure.
you appoint the
You have-
members,
you have
and
the
there's 7
say-so.
members, so one member can't just arbitrarily
Right.
terminate an employee.
You have the overriding authority to appoint members through the mayor.
Isn't that basically what we've been doing then?
Yes. That's what you've been doing to get the board established. Of course, as you know, the 2 school districts have input, the county has input, and I think that's.
School board.
Well, I said
Both
the 2
school
school
boards,
boards, the
yeah.
2 school boards. I think this is a fine piece of work. I think you folks need to be commended for what you did.
I agree.
I share Lou's concerns, and I still think that a good argument could be made to leaving this a salaried position. But I also think that this program belongs to the board of directors. And if they are convinced that they have a way of controlling the spending, then I think we ought to go with their recommendations.
Well, they're not technically in our general fund anymore. So if they allow her to hit 60 hours a week and 20 hours of overtime, they're gonna be out of budgeted money. And then they're not gonna be able to operate, so they have to keep
And
that
then
in line too.
In that case,
Yeah.
they should fire me because I have probably duties as
So I
maintaining a budget.
think,
That's
you
true
know,
with any-
the city's not gonna pick up their slack. They're gonna have to be responsible for that, so I think that's gonna make the rec board more
I
accountable
agree.
and watch hours and expenses closer. Not that it was an issue before, but,
Potential issue now.
right.
And I've looked at the numbers for that have been spent over the last 10 years, and there really has not, there's really no anomalous years other than years where there was not a director for a period of time. So it's not like, I mean, the expense of the rec director's salary has grown in line with the entire budget of the program and the number of programs that they are sponsoring. So I mean, it's not, nothing has happened here that wasn't natural growth. It's not that somebody's hitting the jackpot button once a year or anything. So, but really, a lot of the intent behind this is not even because anything was necessarily wrong, as it was that there was a crisis of perception within the community as to what the recreation director's job was versus the compensation. And the more transparent we can be with the number of hours worked and the wage and all these things, then the better off we're going to be. Then we don't have other employees from other departments that are upset because they feel like it's not an equitable situation. So I guess that's really kind of the crux of the matter, is we're not trying to fix something because it's necessarily broken. It's just been perceived as broken.
I would move. We reclassify the position of rec director as a half-time hourly non-exempt employee.
A second.
Any more discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So the next step that needs to happen, since we've reclassified this, we need to set compensation. At this point, I guess I would ask Dan if we should continue an open session, or if we need to be.
Well, I think, obviously, under the exception, if you're going to have any interchange with a non-elected personnel, you need to be in executive session to go through that. And of course, then you'll come back into open session for your action. But I can't see the separation. I mean, you have a recreation director now who is non-elected personnel who might play into the discussion. So I think, as intended by the privacy rights brought forward in the Open Meetings Act, you should go into executive session.
Okay.
I think you're permitted to do so, and I think it's the cautious thing to do.
Then I would move that we enter into executive session to discuss the details of the rec director-employee relationship for 15 minutes.
Because of the fact that it involves non-elected.
Because it's non-elected, non-appointed position.
Who do you want in attendance?
I would ask that the council, mayor, city attorney, the recreation director, Deborah Zacco, who is a recreation board member, and the city clerk be present.
I'll second.
Any further discussion, council? All in favor?
Aye.
8:50.
Last time you're talking about Eagle Fight.
Proceed.
I didn't make the motion.
What am I doing?
You stated.
Oh, I want to, can I just rescind?
Yes.
I want to rescind my motion.
Which was?
Which was to,
Jack made the motion to reclassify, you seconded.
right,
Oh,
that's right, isn't that where we
But
were?
actually, right now, all
we
we need
passed
to
that,
do.
didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
All we need to do is say which wage option and the starting date of that wage option.
Okay, so I want to rescind my motion?
No.
No,
You
I
gotta
want
make
to-
a new motion.
I need, okay, I wanna make a new motion, all right. I'm confused where we were after.
You're right on.
Okay,
After all that?
and go with option 2,
Which is
which is hourly rate of $15.32,
effective.
effective the June payroll.
I'll second that.
Which is the Rex Commission intention, right? The Rex.
Correct.
Alright. And Jack seconded it. Any more discussion, council? About the rec pay? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, moving on. Nuisance report.
And the one across the street is.
Let's see the house came tumbling down.
How long do they have to get the lot cleaned up?
That's what's the neighborhood vote for that? 2 days?
I thought it was May 12th.
Well, that was Justice here to address that.
What
We
was
did
in the
not
letter?
discuss any of that.
What was in the letter that we sent them that it was abated and they had so much time?
10 days. Well, that's the only thing that's in the abatement ordinance, it's to be torn down within 10 days. It doesn't say anything about it.
Lot clean.
Well, it follows that it's gotta be totally abated. I mean, that's the
Right.
first
So they
step.
can't leave it like it is?
Well, no, it's,
Okay,
it's already part of an abatement process.
I haven't even been by there.
They haven't been,
Well, that doesn't necessarily involve them. I mean, the city can go in and take away whatever has to be taken. It's not-
they
It
haven't,
doesn't just come to an end.
after they were there that day and took it down, there
Who's
hasn't
they?
been no movement. The boys,
Yeah, well,
they haven't.
more to be done, just like on any of the ones that they've done. There's no exception. It's gotta be cleaned up. That's the whole point of it.
So doesn't a letter need to
That
be?
doesn't sound like a cheerful neighbor to me.
I got a question for you, Dan, on habitual offenders that are like never ending, that we're gonna be mowing and mowing and mowing and mowing and they manage to pay their utility bills, but nothing else. Is there anything else we can do about that?
All of those mowing jobs can go on the tax rolls.
I don't think they do, but they don't ever get paid,
Well, they're a lien against the property.
so we can't just pull a meter or.
Well, aren't they made a part of the utility bill that they owe?
No.
Well, that's the best you're gonna be able to do and expect that people will ultimately either get it paid or it'll be paid when the property gets sold for a tax sale. That's where it heads. Letters might help, maybe a notification.
We resend the bills multiple times. We have to give 3 notices for the lien on the property.
Yeah.
I was just curious, it was just a question.
Well, that's the method you have available is to put the lien on the property. Most people would weeds continue to grow and you continue to mow.
That's a good slogan.
I like that.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm writing it
We
down.
need a lot of
Sounds like a
t-shirts
mission
made up
statement
like
to
that.
me.
Number 5 is a mess. Needs mowed.
Yeah, that was the one I was talking about.
Because that's the one on the west side of the street.
We've sent notice.
The one that the city's taken to court for other things that'll never get paid.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one we got a judgment against him too.
I think that's the one that Jess isn't very happy with right now.
It's property I wouldn't wanna take my mower on.
Well, yeah, that's. I think we have a judgment there, we could probably, do an execution on it and cause it to be sold. I mean, that's a little different from the mowing lien. We've got a judgment against.
I was gonna say, there's more dollars owed to the city there than what the property's worth. I mean, when are you gonna draw the line?
Well, that's the way, that's true with a lot of foreclosures.
That's the way that goes.
It's more against it than what it's worth.
So
And
then we
but the problem
continue
is,
to
it's
mow?
just gonna keep racking up. That's, where's the end? That's what I was
Oh.
getting at.
That seems kinda crazy.
Yeah.
Just put more time and money into it and it never gets sold because it's so, price is so high,
Yeah.
nobody wants it for that.
Well, if they do a tax sale, it
Yeah,
goes to the high
Get it
bidder.
in.
But,
And then we have to write off.
Yeah, but we end up,
But they'll pay just enough
But
that
at
it
least
don't
then
go
you
to the tax sale.
stop the bleeding,
And maybe somebody will buy it,
maintain.
maintain, pay taxes.
Anything else on nuisance report? City officials report, city attorney, Ready Industries lease.
I have 3 items here, or 2 for sure. As you know, there's been communication between Ready Industries and the city relative to moving into a more permanent lease. I would need to have someone move to go into executive session to discuss the details of those negotiations and some correspondence that's gone with that. I don't see any of them here. They would be entitled to participate, but I don't think we'll need to have a great amount of time, but for the purpose of discussion of privileged matters with the council's attorney, that would be protected by the attorney-client privilege. I suggest you entertain a motion to go into executive session for 10 minutes.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Oh, with Dan and Heather.
For 10 minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's 8:58.
You're talking about Eagle Proceed.
I didn't make the motion.
what am I doing?
You stated,
Oh, I want to, can I just rescind?
yes,
I want to rescind my motion.
Which was?
Which was to,
Jack made the motion to reclassify, you seconded.
right,
oh,
Can't they just do
that's
it
right,
now?
isn't that where we
But
were?
actually, right now,
we
all we need
passed
to
that,
do,
didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
all we need to do is say which wage option and the starting date of that wage option.
Okay, so I want to rescind my motion?
No.
No,
So
I
you
want
make
to-
a new motion.
I need, okay, I wanna make a new motion, all right. I'm confused where we were after.
You're right on.
Okay,
After all that?
and go with option 2,
Which is
which is hourly rate of $15.32.
effective
effective the June payroll.
I'll second that.
Which is the Rex Commission intention, right? The Rex.
Correct.
Alright. And Jack seconded it. Any more discussion, council? About the rec pad? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright, moving on. Nuisance report.
And the one across the street is.
I see the house came tumbling down.
How long do they have to get the lot cleaned up?
That's all. What's the neighborhood vote for that? 2 days?
I thought it was May 12th.
Well, that was Justice here to address that.
What
We
was in
did
the
not
letter?
discuss any of that.
What was in the letter that we sent them that it was abated and they had so much time?
10 days. Well, that's the only thing that's in the abatement ordinance, that it's to be torn down within 10 days. It doesn't say anything about
Block clean.
Well, it follows that it's gotta be totally abated. I mean, that's a.
Right.
The first
So they
step.
can't leave it like it is?
Well, no,
Okay,
it's already part of an abatement process.
I haven't even been by there.
They haven't been,
Well, that doesn't necessarily involve them. I mean, the city can go in and take away whatever has to be taken. It's not-
they
It
haven't,
doesn't just come to an end.
after they were there that day and took it down, there
Who's
hasn't
they?
been no movement. The boys,
Yeah, well,
they haven't.
more to be done, just like on any of the ones that they've done. There's no exception. It's gotta be cleaned up. That's the whole point of it.
So doesn't a letter need to
That
be?
doesn't sound like a cheerful neighbor to me.
I got a question for you, Dan, on habitual offenders that are like never ending, that we're gonna be mowing and mowing and mowing and mowing and they manage to pay their utility bills but nothing else. Is there anything else we can do about that?
All of those mowing jobs can go on the tax rolls.
I don't think they do, but they don't ever get paid.
Well, they're a lien against the property.
So we can't just pull a meter or,
Well, aren't they made a part of the utility bill that they owe?
No.
Well, that's the best you're gonna be able to do and expect that people will ultimately either get it paid or it'll be paid when the property gets sold for a tax sale. That's where it heads. Letters might help, maybe a notification.
We resend the bills multiple times. We have to give 3 notices for the lien on the property.
Yeah.
I was just curious, it was just a question.
Well, that's the method you have available, is to put the lien on the property. Most people would think about doing something about it, but
Yeah.
the weeds continue to grow and you continue to mow.
That's a good slogan.
I like that.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm writing it down.
Sounds like a mission statement to me.
Number 5 is a mess. Needs mowed.
Yeah, that was the one I was talking about.
Because that's the one on the west side of the street.
We've sent notice.
The one that the city's taken to court for other things that'll never get paid.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's one we got a judgment against them too.
I think that's the one that Jess isn't very happy with right now.
It's property I wouldn't wanna take my mower on.
Well, that's. I think we have a judgment there, we could probably, do an execution on it and cause it to be sold. I mean, that's a little different from the mowing lien. We've got a judgment against.
I was gonna say, there's more dollars owed to the city there than what the property's worth. I mean, when are you gonna Problem
continue
is,
to
it's just
mow.
gonna keep racking up, that's, where's the end, that's what I was
Oh.
getting at.
That kinda seems kinda crazy.
Yeah.
Just put more time and money into it and it never gets sold because it's so, price is so high,
Yeah.
nobody wants it for that.
Well, if they do a tax sale, it goes to the high
Did it
bidder.
in?
But
And then we have to write off.
Yeah, but we end up,
But they'll pay just enough
But
that
at
it
least
don't
then
go
you
to the tax sale.
stop the bleeding,
Maybe somebody will buy it,
maintain.
maintain it, pay taxes.
Anything else on nuisance report? City officials report, city attorney, Ready Industries lease.
I have 3 items here, or 2 for sure. As you know, there's been communication between Ready Industries and the city relative to moving into a more permanent lease. I would need to have someone move to go into executive session to discuss the details of those negotiations and some correspondence that's gone with that. I don't see any of them here. They would be entitled to participate, but I don't think we'll need to have a great amount of time, but for the purpose of discussion of privileged matters with the council's attorney that would be protected by the attorney-client privilege, I suggest you entertain a motion to go into executive session for 10 minutes.
So moved.
Oh, second.
Oh, with Dan and Heather.
For 10 minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's 8:58.
over the 30.
In the night.
No action taken in executive session, so we're gonna move on to Green Homes.
Green Homes is going to take a little more time. There have been letters exchanged. It's again a matter of negotiation between the attorneys involved, and I suggest you entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters protected by the attorney-client privilege as being confidential. And I would say we probably need 30 minutes. If that's too big a chunk, make it 20 minutes.
I like 20 better.
I do too.
Hey,
I move for 20 minutes with Dan and Heather.
Any further discussion, council, on the motions? All in favor?
Aye.
20 minutes at 9. Moving on, cause no action taken. Kinder Morgan right-of-way consideration.
That
Dan.
requested that be passed for tonight.
Oh, pass for tonight, okay.
All that talk and no action, I'm telling you.
We took a nap.
At one
getting
point, somebody
late.
would get.
We just wanna see how late you'll really stay here, Jill. City clerk, 2017 audit through 2019 budget.
Well, it's not really true, it's two different topics.
Okay.
Should've been a
You
bit
should've
more.
been in a line on
Yeah.
Okay.
Who made this agenda?
I know, I'll work. Our audit was completed on May 30th. They will be here either at the July or August meeting to report. They didn't mention any violations at the time, but they did come in and do our audit for 2017. And then I didn't know if the council had anything that I need to prepare for that's in the back of their minds for the 2019 budget.
Staff car for the president of council.
There you go.
You've already got the potential sewer project that we've been pursuing grants
Sewer,
on, haven't we?
water, Jess suggested 2 employees.
Did
We-
he ask for a truck?
Sewer machine, bucket truck. These are very far-fetched, just so you know. This is not all gonna fit in. I'm gonna do my best to share. The airport not getting their grant,
Couple $1 million maybe
that,
twice.
yeah, mowers. If they're going to plan this proposal or this design for the council meeting room, there's money there, there's about 80 in general now that was placed there for potentially someday, well, we have the stone repair that we still haven't addressed. But I didn't know if we were gonna come in at last minute and say, what about this, what about that, so.
Did you ever get a hold of somebody about that, Jack?
Yeah, that's where we got the
We
figure.
got the
and then-
bid, I think.
Yeah,
then we
Taylor,
Kinda
because
putting
it
it off 'cause
scared
of-
us.
we did the soffit and the eaves and
Yeah,
gutters rather.
Little by little.
Other than that, if nobody has anything,
I think
that ought to be enough,
between you and Jess's wish list, that's all we can afford.
more than
Huh?
we can afford.
Yeah, more than we can afford. Anything else for city clerk then? Nothing. City superintendent report, I talked to Jess today, they started this morning, I don't know, really early, 4 o'clock and.
5.
5, okay, 5, I don't know. Anyways, really early, they started, the nursing home, they did the disconnect for the new power and all that stuff, and then he was sweating it, I guess, and he said they were hoping to have the power off only 2 hours, ended up only being 40 minutes, so the nursing home was extremely happy about that, and it was early this morning, so it was cool, was the game plan, so, and he said, I have a combine that has to get ready to go, and, he said I didn't see much on there that probably pertained to him, so. So I excused him, I guess I should say. What else? Oh, I guess it's more of a Dan question. I was thinking Clay might be here tonight, but for I know they were talking about the electrical going across since we didn't get the grant, is that something that's gonna have to be done ASAP still, or can that be put on the back burner?
Well, I think there's still money in the grant
To do that.
to do that. I think
Okay.
he's planning on it being done. In fact, I talked to him today about it, and, I think he's just waiting on,
Bids from Jess.
yeah.
And
He's planning.
I think Jess has been doing his research, cause he was showing me some different options of what he thought would be
He said that
better and
Jess
not
was-
good.
Was working on it, and so it's still
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, so that was something we
Talking
discussed.
about the underground.
Yeah, about the underground, yep. He was kinda, I guess, more doing his homework on what he wanted to do or how he thought it ought to be done, so. I think that's it, other than been mowing and.
still don't have the report for the transformer.
Oh, yeah, at the power plant, they're waiting for the report from Solomon on the
Just a wide field.
Wyatt valve, yeah. And that's it. Governing body, Lisa. Dottie. Elijah?
One thing, I've noticed there has been a lot of activity on that disc golf course, so I guess it was kinda surprising to me that, every weekend, well, I guess it's only been open for a couple of weeks now, but there were some serious disc golfers on there that opening night, so I think that was a good yeah, guys
I see what you're
carrying
looking at,
around
yeah.
what looked like a golf caddy with, looked to me like about at least a couple hundred frisbees in there. I mean, there was a big stack.
Are you sure it wasn't the beer cooler?
No, and these guys, I mean, they were,
That's serious. Disco.
that one guy, I bet he had 40 of them. It was, yeah, it
We
was
had a
amazing.
gentleman stop in and I gave Jessica the card and he goes around the state of Kansas to all, and he said we have one of the best.
Plays
Really?
ball.
Yes.
Really?
Who knew?
Compared to-
I guess we we need to give them a
He said whoever
commendation.
designed it did great. The only hole he didn't care for was the first one because it goes through the park where you could potentially hit a small child. But he said the rest of it was lined out perfect.
Good, very nice.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Luke? Jack?
So a pirate walks into a bar.
Hey, Jack, you're on camera.
This might be the
Just
beginning of
letting
something big. Entertainment world.
Pirate walks into a bar, and pretty standard appearance. I mean, he's got the greasy ponytail, and he's got the peg leg, and the knee breeches, and the patch on one eye, and the parrot on his shoulder, the whole rig. The only thing that really stands apart is he doesn't have the black three-corner hat. In fact, what he's wearing is a paper towel that he tied knots in the corners and pulled down over his hair. Bartender really doesn't want to engage with him because he doesn't know what kind of response he's going to get, but he finally, his curiosity overwhelms him, and he says, I know it's none of my business, but what's the deal with the paper towel? And the pirate grabs him by the lapel and pulls him up close and says, "Arr, that'd be the bounty on me head."
I move we adjourn.
Oh, that's bad.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You guys all have a good